Plain Speak right here on CNN News 18. My name is Toya Singh. We're headed now towards our second topic of discussion. Our second story is a very different and very important one. Months ago, we brought you the heartbreaking story of Darshan Solanki. He was a first-year IIT Bombay student whose death put into the spotlight allegations of caste-based discrimination taking place in colleges across the country. Now, Solanki's story is not the first, and his family continues to demand justice as the college and the police probe both say that Solanki's death followed his concern about poor marks and not caste-based harassment. Today, in a move to counter discrimination in their campus, IIT Bombay essentially has instructed its students that henceforth it'll be inappropriate to ask other students what their JEE advanced rank was or their GATE scores were because it may reveal their caste. But today on Plain Speak, we're going to be asking, is this move and others that have been made by the college that we'll take you through, are these moves enough? Let's take a quick look at some of the data that we have on this entire story. This was not the first time that a student died by suicide allegedly due to casteism. All of the next cases we're going to bring you are from IIT Bombay. One in 2014. It was what IIT Bombay announced a number of its measures for. We'll actually take you through those numbers in just a bit. But first, I want to walk you through what IIT Bombay has said they're going to do in terms of changes. Number one, they've said that caste identity is not going to be disclosed to anyone post-admission. Number two, they've said SC/ST student cell will be set up in campus to assist students. Number three, they've said students will be encouraged to interact irrespective of their caste. Number four, they've said students will be asked to avoid sharing their JEE scores. And that's an important one because that's the point of discussion today. All of the other changes we've talked about, all of those changes had already taken place on the college campus before the Darshan Solanki incident. This is the only change since. Now, they've also said anti-discrimination guidelines have been shared with students. Now, let's take you through some of the numbers when it comes to IITs. We're going to be flashing these numbers for you on the screen next to me. We have these data points from 2021, 2022 and 2023. Now, when you take a look at, and you can actually see these numbers, as I said, on the screen next to me, when you take a look at the total number, what we'd like you to do is add the SC, ST, OBC and minority numbers together and see what proportion of the total number they are. In many cases, you'll see, like in 2021 and in 2023, that those percentages are between 30 to 50%. All right, those are some particularly heartbreaking numbers. We're going to move to the topic that we're discussing today. As we told you a little while earlier, the Darshan Solanki case. IIT Bombay's anti-casteism move. Is this enough to stop discrimination? That's the question we're taking a look at. And to start this entire conversation with us, we have the Deputy Director of IIT. He'll be joining us in just a second.
Guideline also mentions how students are not allowed to have any WhatsApp forwards or any casteist remarks being sent on social media across.
Okay, to get more context into this story, we thought first that it was important to hear what it is that the administration had to say. This is S. Sudarshan. He's the Deputy Director of IIT B. We have him with us today to bring us more context on IIT B's most recent decision, but also decisions they made in the months following this incident. Our first question to you, sir. Sir, firstly, thank you for joining us. Our first question to you. Could you explain to our audiences why IIT Bombay decided to make the move that we're talking about, the move that's in focus today, which is that you've said that students can't discuss their JEE rankings when they come in? That shouldn't be the first question they ask each other, which is something that is quite customary in IIT. Why did your college decide this? What's the context?
Okay, so every year IIT Bombay take certain actions to ensure that students get along well with each other and that there is no discrimination based on caste, gender, and so on. We have several orientation programs that when students join here, which tell students what is acceptable, what is not. This year, we decided to put whatever was being conveyed through various different orientation sessions into one common guideline. And that is what has been circulated in various places now. And we have sent it to all our new incoming students and also to our existing students.
All right, sir, I do want to ask you, though, if one were to ask if this move comes in response to the incident that took place months ago, where, of course, a first-year student, Darshan Solanki, died, what would the college say to that, sir?
Okay, obviously, that's a very unfortunate incident. We have been taking various steps, even before the incident, to avoid these kind of things happening, including the issues of caste and so on. There has been work, but obviously, we are doing more of it this year. And we hope such things will not happen in the future. We are also introducing various support systems. We are ensuring that the stress levels in the first year are reduced from the coming year. And so we have taken a number of steps so that these incidents will not happen.
All right. So the incident you talked about, the incident that we're talking about, this is something that the entire nation has talked about. I do want to ask you, sir, you've said earlier also, and IIT also has said that they are introducing a set of measures. One, for example, is the increasing of caste sensitization across the entire campus. But, sir, this is something that's also been written about in media outlets. I want to ask you, though, sir, the sentiment that we get when we speak to student groups on the ground is that the college is still not doing enough, that having a course sensitization for caste sensitivity, this just isn't enough. So to that, what would be the IIT B's administrative response?
We are doing a variety of things. Like I said, the gender sensitization was already launched last year. And last year, even before these incidents which happened in the last few months, we had already started the creation of the corresponding caste sensitization course. So the administration is taking a number of proactive steps. It's not just reactive because of recent events, but it has been proactive, and we will continue to do it. We are, of course, part of a larger society. We have to educate our students when they come in, and also those who are already here, so that they learn, what kind of things can cause hurt or harm, and are educated to avoid such behavior.
Okay, sir, I now want to get to the issue that has caused controversy. We know on record, both from the police investigation into this entire incident and, of course, what IIT B had to say, that both IIT B and the police believe that it was academic pressure primarily that was to blame. But if you look at the accounts of student after student who come from backgrounds like Darshan Solanki, they all say that academic pressure is very hard to separate from the issue of caste. For example, when you're on the campus and so many of the classes are happening in English and you come from a background that hasn't equipped you to handle that, that can be very tricky. So this is something that his family also has pointed out. Do you think that there needs to be some kind of acknowledgement from the administration that these two issues can't be separated, that it isn't such a clear divide?
To answer the first part of your question, as you said, some of these issues may be because some of the students are not very familiar with English. So we have for many years been conducting extra classes in English for all those students who do it. In fact, the very first day or two that they land up here, there is a small test in English. And for those who clearly need help, they have been given support to learn about English. But those have been primarily in addition to the academic course load. This year, we have changed it for the new incoming batch. Those who need English, for them, this will be a regular course and a replacement for some other alternative courses which other students take, which these students can take later if they want. But the goal is that from the first semester, they are given more support if they need that for English. And the academic stress is related to the load also. And so this year, we have reduced the load in the first year. so that students get more time to settle in a new environment. We have increased the orientation, which was fairly short, 2 or 3 days earlier. We now have a full week's orientation, which started today. So we are taking various steps to reduce the stress on students. We had half semester courses earlier. We have got rid of half semester courses so that if students have some difficulty settling down in the first few weeks or a month, they still have time to catch up on courses, which was a little more difficult with half semester courses. So we have taken a number of steps to reduce the stress. This is, of course, based on various feedbacks we have got from students.
Okay. So there's one data set which says that 90% of IIT Roorkee's dropouts are members of backward caste like SC, ST and OBC groups. And experts say that numbers like that indicate that these are groups which are genuinely having a very, very hard time on campus. Now, you just walked us through different initiatives that have been taken by the administration. But what I'm not understanding and what I'd like you to clarify is that are you then saying that post these different initiatives that have already been taken, let's see what happens, let's wait a little while and then comment on this issue?
See, we have been doing various things. These are not the only ones. For example, I don't know exactly what the numbers are with respect to based on the background of the students. But certainly there are students who have had difficulty, completing their bachelor's programs. So again, about a year back, we introduced an option of a 3-year degree for those who do not want to continue with the 4-year degree. And in particular, let's say they are in a branch which they are not very comfortable with. They can get a degree which is called BSc 3-year in engineering. Which is with a broader engineering background, not just branch specific. If they want to continue with their branch, but they do not want to finish the full year program, 4-year program, because perhaps they're having academic difficulties, they can do a smaller number of courses and get, let's say, a BSc 3-year in electrical engineering or in computer science. So when these students go out, they get a proper degree, they can get placements and so on. So this is one of the other steps we took about a year back.
All right, so I want to push back though on one thing slightly. I do want to touch on this question again. In many of the articles written by experts post this actual incident taking place a few months ago, one of the things experts seem to agree on again and again that it was important for IIT B to acknowledge that these two issues are not issues that are different from each other, that they are in fact interrelated, and to say that it was not his caste or in any student's case, not their caste, just the hardship they're having in their education, that is too much of a blanket statement. That's the criticism, sir, that's come in from a number of experts. To that, sir, what is your thought?
See, obviously, caste might have played a role, but it is hard for us to know what happens in individual cases. So I cannot comment on any individual case. Now, there are obviously students who are affected by this, but what is the number and so on is not something which it's easy to pin down in this case. But what we can do as an administration is to ensure that these kind of discrimination, which sometimes, it is not meant to happen that way, but it can feel that way. Sometimes it may be intentional. Whatever it is, we want to make sure it does not happen. So part of what we have been doing for many years, and we will, this year we have made it a little more formal. We've told them in more explicit words rather than just in the orientation that these are guidelines you have to follow. And if you don't follow it, we have had always a system where if such things happen, students are punished, just like ragging. There are multiple other things like this where violations will be treated very seriously. And so we have been doing it and we are strengthening it so that the campus is much more inclusive for all our students, especially those from communities who feel who have been discriminated against in the past. We want to make sure that they feel at home and in the campus.
All right, I'd like to thank the Deputy Director for joining us and for taking out the time. We have two guests with us that are going to shed more light on this entire story. The discussion we're going to have is going to look to understand what more needs to be done. Dr. Geeta Bhatt, a academician and political analyst who was also there with us in our previous discussion, and Professor Shobha Bagai, a cluster innovation center expert at the University of Delhi. I'd like to thank both of you for joining us. Professor Bagai, I'm actually going to come over to you first to ask you. We walked our audiences through a little while ago what the different changes that IIT has brought in to combat this issue are. But the fact is that when you take a look at this list, one change has been brought in post Darshan Solanki's death. That change is the change that we're discussing today. Most of the other changes have been in place, though, for years. I want to ask you, ma'am, what more do you think needs to be done, and what are the accounts you hear from students on campuses? You're, of course, at the University of Delhi.
First of all, thank you so much for having me on board. You know, one thing that comes to the light that the institute has taken, that the students must not discuss the rank, is something I think we need to consider it very seriously, because that talks about, it brings into the light what we have been talking about, that all of us are being in the rat race. Who is coming first, who is coming second, and who is coming last? And we are in fact judging the students, and maybe in a broader sense, the other aspects of the society, and we are putting them into compartments of ranks, which I think is very, very unfortunate. That is something, which this whole discussion, at least for me as an academician, has brought into the light, that why are we so much after ranks? Because each individual, as per his or her own capacity, can do wonders in the world if they do not, give up so easily. And the students discussing there that what your rank is, it gives them a sense of superiority, that look, I am at the rank so-and-so and your rank at so-and-so, so I am better than you in some sense or the other. But once, when we come to the academics, we all understand that marks, in fact, they are just not even an iota to actually understand any person's academics ability. There are so many factors, by which you are there at a certain rank. At that instance, when you're giving an entrance test, how your brain works, whether you're able to comprehend that problem, or, you've just made a slight mistake here or there. So there are so many factors that come into play. That, of course, should not be there. And when we talk about the stresses, yes, these stresses, we cannot run away from the fact that these stresses are being created amongst the students, either through their peers or even through their family members or through the society. That you will be considered good only in case you have secured an admission into college X, Y, and Z. I think it is high time, at least in terms of the education, when we say that we are educating somebody, we should get rid of this concept of rankings.
Okay. Ma'am, I do want to understand, though, from you, since IIT has already introduced this change, I want to know, though, what your overall thoughts are. We talked about the fact that this is the only change they've introduced since the incident we talked about. They have said, for example, that they plan to introduce caste sensitization courses. This is what we were discussing. Do you think this is enough? And as you are obviously a professor active on campus right now, what are the accounts that you hear from students about not just academic pressure, ma'am, but caste-based discrimination? Because I don't want to obfuscate that aspect of this topic.
As far as the caste discrimination is there, it's good for me that at least, because we have a very small number of students admitted into our in our institution. And at least I do not find that very blatantly in our institution. Because in our institution, I find the students irrespective. I mean, it's very difficult for me to even understand that if somebody is from a caste A, B, or C, because the students are actually working together. And we have a project-based learning scheme. And what we try to do is we try to form those teams, and I don't think so there is any concept of caste coming into it. But having said that, I don't think so we can discard this problem at all. And the sensitization of each and every, I would go ahead and say every person, that would include the students and the teachers. Each one of them must be sensitized. The family members must be sensitized that when you are going to an educational institution, your religion is only as a student, your caste is only a student.
Okay.
And no other caste matters.
Professor, just stay with us. I haven't gone over to the other guest who's with us yet. Dr. Geeta Bhatt, thank you for waiting with us over the last few minutes. Dr. Bhatt, your first reaction to this entire story and what IIT has to say? After that, we'll come to you with further questions.
Well, you see, I think premier institutions like Indian Institute of Technology have been, time and again, they have been looking at how they can overcome these unfortunate incidences which we have been listening to, for the past few years, where such young students, they have given up their lives. And primarily, I think it is largely because there is, so much of peer pressure in terms of students may ask very innocently regarding someone's rank, or it could be just healthy competitiveness. But it may result into, very serious ramifications for some of the students, as was being discussed, by the Deputy Director of IIT. So, what is important here is that there are various safeguards that the institution is trying to take place. And I think any educational institution which comes across, such cases will try to look at how they would, best way to safeguard their students from any such mishaps to take place. And I personally feel is that while it is important that these kind of, various guidelines, they need to be issued, it seems that they have been doing it earlier also, but earlier it was through, in a more informal manner. And here, this time they have put it right forth in, in ink that it is important that the students and, among each other, they need to be very, very cautious and careful. Not to hurt anyone's sentiments.
But doctor, do you think that's enough? That's what I'm trying to understand.
That is what I am coming to that point. I personally feel that while all these guidelines, these safeguards that have been taken by the institutions are very important, but at the same time, what is important is that we need to prepare our students to face failures in life. Because even in institution, once you pass out of the institution, there are so many challenges that one faces in life. It may be at your place of work or in your family or in any other kind of circumstances. So it is important that there should be counseling sessions where the students should be able to accept, even if anyone has got, certain limitations or shortcomings, and look at the ways, show them the ways that how they can overcome these, the shortcomings because of which they are facing failures. For example, one was put forth by you was in terms of language, that the teaching is in English. And this could be one of the reasons a large number of students who are coming from rural background, they may not be in a position to understand the language very well. And so this is, I think, in a way, a shortcoming which has developed because of the way education has been, taken forward in the last couple of decades, which I am sure that the national education policy, which addresses this issue, that it is very important that the education, even in technical institutions or medical institutions, should be given in the languages, in Indian languages, in Bharatiya languages. So these kind of changes over, we have to keep introspecting and look at the ways how we can make the education more inclusive, where students who are coming from, poor socio-economic background, they are also finding a place and are able to do well in academic institutions and in life.
Okay. Dr. Bhatt and Professor Bagai, I'd like to thank you for participating in today's discussion. We just discussed not only what it is that the college had introduced since Darshan Solanki's death, but also what more needed to change in the entire system. With that, we come to an end of our show. Thank you for watching us here at Plain Speak. We're going to bring you more of the country's top stories on the other side. This is CNN News 18.